Hey, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. Andy, Russell Westbrook has declared Sunday's game against the Pelicans a must-win for the Lakers. How confident are you that the Lakers can win a must-win game? We'll get that next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Want to thank everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes Saturdays and Sundays. We get this thing up bright and early wherever you get your podcasts, however you get your podcasts. And of course, Andy, this one is always free, never behind a paywall, never a subscription that you need to have. Want to let you know as well that today's episode is brought to you by Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at LockedOn.NBATopShot.com. So we'll get to, we started a conversation earlier this week, Andy, about Malik Monk and sort of, how his path has gone from last year into the Lakers and now where it could go from here. And it's the where it could go from here part that we didn't get to. Can the Lakers re-sign him? Should the Lakers re-sign him? Because it's actually kind of complicated. So we'll start breaking that down. Plus, we all kind of agree that Frank Vogel is not going to be here next year. That means somebody else will be. Quinn Snyder has been linked to the Lakers. We'll talk about those rumors as we go along. But first, Andy, Russell Westbrook called Sunday a must-win, the game against the Pelicans, to try to get seeding and also just stay in the play-in game. What was your reaction, first of all, to hearing that from him? Because, not to get the debate that our friend John Ireland at 710 ESPN, the voice of the Lakers, likes to have about what defines a must-win game. This, technically speaking, is not a must-win for them. It doesn't put them out of the playoffs. It doesn't set them behind anybody.
Look, to be totally honest, not to know and you, it's a dumb question because it's obviously a must-win game by any practical, reasonable measure. Once you get beyond these semantics, I don't mean it's a dumb question for you to be asking it. I'm just saying it's dumb to try to frame it as anything other than must-win, because practically speaking, when you look at the situation the Lakers are in right now, will the sky immediately drop Sunday if they lose this game? No, obviously, but you are talking about putting yourself in serious jeopardy as opposed to still having an uphill fight, even if you win the damn thing, but giving yourself a really necessary cushion, especially with one more game coming up with the Pelicans.
So now, let me ask you this, though, because this is actually relevant to your answer. When you answer that question, are you talking about staying in a cushion to stay in the play-in game, a cushion to stay ahead of the Pelicans? And as we record, which is actually before Thursday night's games, the Pelicans, who I think are playing Chicago on Thursday night, are a half game behind the Lakers. So they'll either be, when we wake up Friday morning, either a game behind or tied. When you talk about this, are you talking about being the seeding for the 8-9, or sorry, the 9-10? Are you talking about just staying in entirely? Because the Spurs are 2 games ahead.
Yes.
Or behind.
The answer, Brian, to all of this is yes. The Lakers are currently 11 games below 500, a game and a half above the Spurs, half a game ahead of the Pelicans, and we are 70-ish games into the season.
Okay.
We do not have the luxury, Brian, of splitting hairs or looking for nuances.
Let me ask you. So, right. Okay. I would agree. Then
it is must win unless you want your life to become a hell of a lot more difficult.
Right. But wouldn't you say that at this point then about all of the games that they have left?
They're all must win in the sense of importance, but this one carries a particular signifier because of who it's against and where that person is in the standings. Like, to answer your original question, was I surprised Russ acknowledged this? The answer is no, because it's so obvious. Even Westbrook, who likes to treat every single question we ever ask him as the dumbest thing he's ever been asked in his life, even he acknowledged, like, yeah, it's must win. Got to win this thing.
Okay. So with that in mind, if you've got essentially, like, what do they got? 9 games left. It's either 8 or 9. 2 of which are against the Pelicans, which are like super must wins, and then the other ones, which they really can't afford to lose either. How confident are you in the Lakers to be able to rise to the need right now? Because Anthony Davis, according to the reporting, fresh reporting on Thursday from Dave McMenamin at ESPN, they are hoping perhaps first week of April at the very earliest Anthony Davis is back. So a few more games at least. How confident are you that they are able to rise to this situation that they're in of 6 or 7 or 8 games in a row that essentially are kind of must wins if you want to make sure that you are in this play-in tournament?
I'm actually pretty confident for a couple reasons. First of all, the Pelicans are not playing especially great right now. And if you look at their roster in terms of guys that you would feel incredibly confident about in a must-win situation, proven along these lines, I don't think they have anybody more so than LeBron. Like, obviously this is all with the assumption LeBron plays.
Right.
And we both think that he was held out against Philly in very large part to make sure he's available for this game with that importance. CJ McCollum, for example, in the playoffs, his numbers have been fine, but they're also not the numbers of somebody who regularly ups his game in those type of moments. He's somebody that performs like CJ McCollum, who's a really good player, as opposed to, say, somebody like LeBron in must-win situations. I think it's safe to say there is a track record of LeBron pressing it up a notch. And then from there, the Lakers are playing well enough lately that I can feel confident in their ability to win a must-win game against a team that, by all rights, they should be able to beat. Not definitively, but should be able to.
I should have been a little more specific too. The Pelicans actually play twice between now and the Lakers game on Sunday. So, and one of those games is, I was about to say, one of those games against San Antonio. So the exact arrangement of the standings when we finally get to Sunday's game is going to be, we can't quite tell you yet. It hasn't happened. We're not being evasive. It's an interesting spot to me that, they are playing better at a time when, to be safe with what they have left. Certainly if they want to host the 9-10 game, which is probably the most optimistic thing, the best thing that can come for them before the end of the year. And just to make sure that they get in, like definitively get in, they probably need to win 4 games, I would say. If you win 4, I think you're pretty much, I don't think San Antonio is going to be able to catch them. They would have to win 6 or 7, or I think San Antonio does currently have the tiebreaker. So that's something else to think about with the Lakers. I think that I am still struggling to get to a place where I feel confident that I can find 4 wins in there. I don't think it's impossible, but I can't point to the games. Well, 4 games, 5 games, whatever it might be. But I will say, feeling confident that you said, could they win 4 or 5? And I don't immediately say no, is a stark improvement over where we've been over the course of the year.
Look, Brian, as a professional podcaster who's been around professional athletes all the time, I have adopted the mindset of we take this thing one show at a time. And in taking this one show at a time, I am taking the Lakers' schedule one game at a time. I am currently confident about their next game against the Pelicans. And you know what?
It would be helpful. It would be a helpful one to win.
Yes. And you know what? Everything we've talked about right now in terms of reasons that you might be doubting things or not feeling good about it, whatever, go listen to some Locked On Pelicans with Jake Madison. I guarantee they're not just like bursting out with like, oh yeah, this thing is a done deal. I'm pretty confident about that.
Yeah, I will say it's just, if things are kind of, slightly optimistic at the very least these days around the Lakers. They're at least giving fans a reason to feel a little bit better about themselves. Nationally, though, I looked it up, and like the Lakers, they've actually fallen way down in the futures betting. Like normally the Lakers get a huge boost. I was looking at Bet Online today. Normally the Lakers just get a huge boost in futures betting just because of casual people always assuming the Lakers are good. And LeBron plays there, I'm going to bet whatever. They are way down. So basketball reality has finally caught up to Vegas in a way that I find interesting.
Whose odds are better, Brian? Lakers or Pelicans?
The Lakers.
Boom!
The Pelicans could be in second place.
Lakers are better. That's it. Move on.
That's it. But you do agree with me that the Pelicans could be like second in the conference right now, and the Lakers probably would still have higher odds because nobody knows what a New Orleans Pelican is.
Brian, move it along. The Lakers are better.
Lakers are better. All right.
Confirmed.
Fair enough. We've established it. Let's get back to Malik Monk because his story is a fascinating one. And the future of Malik Monk as a Laker is very much a question. It's going to be one of the dominant issues going into the offseason. We'll get to that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Bet Online. It's that time of year, college basketball. We are in the middle of it. It has been crazy with upsets and peacocks and all sorts of stuff. So for all the latest, but by the way, we got a lot of comments on the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel for Thursday's show with our Peacock talk. People seem to enjoy it, so
yes,
we're glad we're entertaining you.
For all coming soon, Locked On Peacocks.
All the latest odds, contests, and interesting interviews. Player props. BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website, use your mobile device, learn more about the trends in action. Bet online where the games start.
Among the other things we talked about on Thursday's show were it came up were LeBron's endorsements. We got a little bit of feedback about that as well.
For people who did not hear the show, we were talking about LeBron and the dunk over Kevin Love, and LeBron joking that he might not end up invited to Kevin Love's wedding. The two of them are obviously very tight from their time with the Cavaliers. And we were joking about just all the different stuff that LeBron either has endorsement deals or business ventures, whatever, that he could give to Kevin Love as a swag bag of sorts. We mentioned
just like stuff he's got lying around the house, purely as a function of being a business mogul.
Yeah, essentially regifting stuff that was given to him by his partners. And we had mentioned the Lobos 1707 tequila, which unsolicited plug, really
delicious.
Good. It's quite good. Beats, Blaze Pizza, the Calm app, Humvee, which is really LeBron's deal with GMC. But franchise 98BJN on the YouTube channel pointed out we forgot Tonal Gym. So I decided, just to make sure for the sake of accuracy, I did a little bit of digging, and to the best of my research, these are all the other things that LeBron could be regifting to Kevin Love as part of his endorsements or business ventures, etc. As franchise mentioned, Tonal, Nike. How the F did we forget about that one?
I mean, but Kevin Love doesn't need Nikes. He's got Nikes.
Well, Kevin Love technically doesn't need anything. He's probably made like $350 million in his career just in his salary. And he's with a model, like a supermodel. So really the dude.
No, that's true. And that is not only like us editorializing. When you become a Sports Illustrated cover model, you elevate to super in the modeling world.
Oh, well, there you have it. Frito-Lay. AT&T,
nice,
yeah, probably. Maybe it was some with Anthony Davis on the cover. Rimowa, I don't know what that is, but that's one of his deals. As I said, AT&T, Walmart, Epic Games. It has something to do with LeBron getting his own skin in the Fortnite game, according to what I read. It's a joint business venture between Nike, Fenway, Epic, and Redbird, which injected.
So Kevin Love gets an avatar in a Fortnite game.
Sure.
I like that.
Also, that means, Brian, the Red Sox, LeBron, lest we forget, has his fingers in that organization as well. He's a minority owner. And then finally, a correction. I had mentioned Sprite. forgotten that LeBron is now a Pepsi man, or specifically a Mountain Dew man.
Mhm.
So that is, to the best of our knowledge, the entirety.
I'm sure
of,
there are more, and
of
plus all the entertainment ventures. He
right.
probably a
Well,
lot of free Space Jam swag and stuff like
yeah,
that. I am not one of these people, by the way, who believes that LeBron wakes up in the morning, given that his body is a temple, and drinks the Mountain Dew. That rise, the Mountain Dew rise. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the idea that is LeBron James's routine in year 19 of his NBA career.
Well, either that, or it really speaks to the idea of that dude is built different.
He's
truly built different. If he can do what he's doing at his age with that type of mileage, taking down Mountain Dews every day.
Yeah. So if you do, I mean, he is not a bad guy to invite to your wedding, just because he has that much stuff lying around. He didn't have to spend any money. The journey, Andy, to use the term, of Malik Monk from Charlotte to the offseason last year, where it was sort of published. It was reported that he turned down more money to come here, made a bet on himself, was kind of the idea. It turns out that isn't necessarily true, based on reporting from Dave McMenamin at ESPN that quotes Monk's agent, who would know. But putting him aside as like how he got here, and kind of one of the only joyous spots that the Lakers have had this year, trying to keep him is going to be incredibly complicated next year. Do you want to break it down? Do you want me to break it down? The how of all this, before we even get into the would you, or
Well,
can they?
I believe, just in sort of broad layman's terms, without stretching Russ, they will only have about $6-ish million to offer Malik Monk, because
taxpayer mid-level, basically.
Right, taxpayer mid-level, because of the way the salary cap works, with Malik Monk coming off a veteran minimum deal. That is essentially a broad strokes way of describing it. If it is my understanding, hopefully accurate, that if they stretched Malik Monk, stretched Russell Westbrook, they could end up with about $10 million to give to Monk. That would be the max they can do.
It gives them an opportunity.
This is with the assumption that LeBron ends up. Well, no, actually, this wouldn't matter anyway. LeBron's going to be under contract regardless. So there you have it.
Right. It's the extent. It's the extension has kind of becomes relevant for other things they could do, whether or not they get a LeBron extension, and the impact of stretching Westbrook. But for these purposes, so yeah, they would be able to get themselves closer to a position where they could pay the non-taxpayer exception to Monk, which would be more money and closer to what he would get in the market. The question is, should they let me ask you this. Do you think that Malik Monk would sign a $6 million deal? I am terrible at the how much is player X going to get, but I think it's pretty clear that Monk would get more than a 3-year, $18 million contract after what he's done this season. So
absolutely,
if you were Monk, would you be like, I love you guys, but you can't expect him to take that deal? I wouldn't think.
I mean, there's no question he said this. As much as he didn't give up money to join the Lakers, it does seem like were the most enthusiastic team, the most fervent in their pursuit of him this offseason. And that is something that both he and, the people around him have not forgotten. So in that sense, I think the relationship with the Lakers matters. At the same time, Malik Monk has not gotten his first big money deal. He is essentially still playing on rookie scale deals or less. It is exceptionally rare, like to the point where I can't think of an example. I mean, maybe it exists, but I can't off the top of my head. Think of one where somebody in that scenario didn't take, if not necessarily the biggest bag possible, a pretty damn big bag. So
one of the bigger bags available.
Yes. So it is difficult to conceive of him. at this stage of his career financially, taking what would be a pretty good haircut for, I think, what he will get this offseason. I'd be stunned if he dealt with the type of stuff he had last offseason, this offseason.
Kevin Love, just to mention, has only made $206 million, Andy, not 350. So pass the hat, please, at the wedding for Kevin and his lovely bride so they can go do something nice for their honeymoon. Yeah, I think there's no chance. I mean, as much as he talks about, how much he appreciates.
Okay, I don't want to get in the weeds on this, Brian, but you forgot the $60 million that are still owed to him for this season and next season.
He could retire.
So
no, that includes no. You're right. It doesn't include. This doesn't include this year.
Yeah,
206 to this point. Yes.
So he's still got another $60 million coming to him. It's close to $300 million.
You know what our grandfather would have called that? Pocket money, walking around money. I agree. I don't think there's a chance that he takes that unless the market just completely collapses and, like you say, a $6-ish million offer from the Lakers is 75 or 80% of what he could get somewhere else. Okay, maybe now there's a chance that they could do it. So the question then becomes:
he might be able to do better than the 10 mil.
I think so. I think there's a team out there that would give him 12 or 13 or 14 million, which in this salary structure for a 24-year-old guy who has shown himself to be a quality now, probably quality bench scorer, I would say, for most good teams, but
and a better playmaker than I thought.
But somebody who could certainly start, depending on what your arrangement was.
He won't kill you.
No, and $13 million for your sixth man, $14 million for your sixth man, or your first guard off the bench, an instant offense type guy is not even close to crazy money. So if the Lakers want to get close, they would need to, I guess, stretch Westbrook. And the question of whether or not they should do this kind of summarizes my deep frustration with the situation that the Lakers are in the first place around Malik Monk and all he represents. And I want to talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Top Shot. NBA Top Shot's the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. You can connect with a community of hundreds of thousands of NBA fans as a natural progression of fantasy sports, a way to upgrade your experience as an NBA fan, because this is the future of fandom with the association. It's part trading cards, except no cardboard. They're officially licensed NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. It's part NBA stock market, because every day millions of dollars worth of NFTs are traded back and forth. It's part fantasy sports. You can capitalize in the market if you're able to predict top performers, and they've got prizes and a loyalty program to boot. Investors include Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Will Smith. I'm predicting future best actor Will Smith. After this coming Sunday, NBA players in the community include Tyrese Halliburton, Cole Anthony, Harrison Barnes. And this is about having an ownership stake in the NBA's greatest highlights. Like, picture if someone had told you in 1916 that a piece of cardboard with Babe Ruth's face would be worth millions. You'd laugh your butt off and say that dude's crazy. Well, you know what? You know who's laughing now? Whoever owns that card.
That's right.
The estate in ownership of that Babe Ruth, that dude or that lady, whoever it is, the whole family, they are laughing now. They're sitting pretty. So sign up for NBA Top Shot today. The best way to start is by getting yourself a starter pack. You can pull an NFT of a superstar like LeBron or KD, star rookies like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley for just $9. And if you don't pull your favorite player from the starter pack, you can snag moments from the marketplace. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at LockedOn.NBATopShot.com.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Built Bar, Andy. It is March, and the weather is warming up. It's like 80 degrees in Los Angeles today, and that means the layers are starting to come off, and you're out, you're active, and you want to look good, you want to feel good, you want to be eating right, and that is where Built Bar comes in, because Andy, this doesn't just happen without a little effort. Have you tried the puffs? The puffs,
yes.
the Built Bar puffs.
Yes.
If you haven't, You're missing out on one of the of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. Again, that is not a description of the Lakers. That is a protein treat. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're covered in a 100% real chocolate, and they're a fan favorite with some incredible flavors like cinnamony churro and coconut marshmallow and banana cream pie. And they're all really good. And they're going to be your new favorites. And all Built Bars are covered, as I mentioned, in 100% real chocolate. That does include the puffs. They're low calorie. They're high protein. And so you can replace your candy bar with these things and you won't even know the difference, except your body will, because they're much, much better for you. Just go to built.com and scroll down to the macros charts. You'll be blown away by everything you see there. And you can get at built.com, if you use the promo code LOCK15, 15% off your order. Again, that promo code is LOCKed15 for 15% off at built.com. So the problem that the Lakers face, Andy, when it comes to Malik Monk is that on the one hand, they can't, it is a difficult position to be in when you're a team that obviously needs major improvements, to have to use one of your exceptions, one of the only mechanisms that they have, really the only one that they have, to sign one of your own players. On the other hand, if you don't use that money to re-sign Malik Monk, you have to replace Malik Monk. And this basically gets to the kind of anger I have at the broader position that the Lakers are in. And one of the things that I think wasn't talked about enough, not by us, but by others, when they made the Westbrook trade particularly, was that they were committing to this treadmill of minimum guys, basically one exception, and that's it. And every year, if somebody plays well, they're almost guaranteed to go away. It's a horrible way to have to build a team. And, I would try to figure out a way to sign him because he's young and then you control the asset and he can grow with you and all that stuff. But in terms of how do you make the team better, you're just treading water if you can figure out a way to keep Monk on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before about how neither one of us is a particularly big fan of the concept of stretching Westbrook. And
I will say, finish your sentence, but I read some stuff from Pincus that has me rethinking it a little bit because he's smarter than me about this stuff.
Eric Pincus, you're referring to from Bleacher Report, in case people didn't know.
Cap
right. I mean, he knows this stuff well enough that teams actually call him about this just to double check their own math and their own logic and things like that. Him and Larry Kuhn.
To be clear, nobody calls us to double check their math. Ever. You know what they call us to talk about, Andy? What? Peacocks.
Yeah, we are.
An NBA GM has a question about a peacock, they call us.
Yes, they do.
They don't frequently, but when they do, I got my phone ready.
Yeah, absolutely. In thinking about whether or not that would be worth it for Malik Monk, for example, like that's a separate question from, is it worth it in total? Is it worth it to do regardless versus whether or not it's worth it to do it for Malik Monk? But thinking about this along the lines of Malik, like on one hand, all the positives that we mentioned, they're all real, and he is somebody that would make a lot of sense to keep for this team. On the other hand, I think there are needs that you could look at and say this team structurally needs more. Like, for example, and this is something I've been screaming about for like 3 years, get an actual legit wing. Yes. Yeah. Get a real, like a guy who is either a 2-3 or 3-4, but a guy that is a legit wing in this league, closer to a 3 than a 4 for sure. But then I started looking, Brian, at a list of potential wing players available in free agency that you might be able to get for $6 million or $10 million. And it's not a big list. Like some of the names that I saw, I'll do a larger in-depth look as the season goes along, but Lou Dort, there's no way the Thunder's letting that guy walk. For at all, much less for 10 mil.
10 million, 6 million. Not a prayer.
Otto Porter Jr.'s had a good season with the Warriors, but
not signing to that level of contract.
Well, and also long term, you start getting nervous about that guy. Derek Jones Jr., Kyle Anderson, slow-mo, TJ Warren's always hurt. Like the wings that would
And
be
probably,
available.
despite that, TJ Warren will probably make more than $6 million.
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe you do this, but my point is maybe you do this stuff for a $10 million guy, like
Right.
that
If you
isn't Malik
sure,
Monk.
sure.
Like, just you start looking around, and the wings that I could find on free agency that I think could be even reasonably realistic as a target for somewhere between $6 to $10 million, not that incredible anyway. So maybe Malik Monk does constitute the best use of $10 million.
Yeah, I mean, is Malik Monk the best player you can get for $10 million?
He might be.
Might
actually be.
And this is assuming they make the sacrifice of stretching Westbrook, which does mess with their cap space. But the flip side is, and this is what I learned from reading Pincus, what occurred to me from reading Pincus, was that cap space for the Lakers and their cap room, doesn't matter that much, because if they sign LeBron to an extension and with Anthony Davis around, they're not really going to have cap space. What it does is it shrinks that margin of actual players that they have until you get to the luxury tax. So it would have implications for their payroll, but not implications for who they could or could not sign in free agency, most likely. It wouldn't matter as I'm probably getting some of the details there wrong.
No, but that reframes it. That does
wouldn't be
it in some respects.
It wouldn't be as horrible of a burden as it seems like on its face necessarily, if I'm understanding that right. But
yeah, no, I've heard Eric say that before.
And so, I mean, that changes it a little bit. But again, how do you get better? This isn't, because this, like you said, this isn't a conversation about Malik Monk so much as it is a conversation about the roster. And how do you make the roster better? Now, I would say one way you make the roster better is you sign Malik Monk, and now you have him and he can grow with you, or you have a guy making 10 or 11, $12 million that you can trade. And you start the slow and arduous process of reconstructing an actual NBA roster with NBA players and NBA salary slots that allows the kind of flexibility that the Lakers really need. I just feel maybe it's like, I don't like talking about guys without remembering that they're human beings and stuff like that. But the conversation about Malik, who is a great human being, a great young human being,
I think we've made that clear throughout the course of the season. We really like him,
but symbolizes so much other stuff to boot. So certainly not the first or last time that we'll have conversations around the roster and Monk in particular. Do want to remind people that they can subscribe to Locked On Lakers on YouTube, and they should. You get podcasts on off days like this one a little bit earlier than you would having to wait for it on your favorite podcasting channel. And we'll be back after Sunday night's must-win game against the Pelicans.
It is must win.
Must win. See everybody next time.